Hi, everyone. It's Kelly, and welcome to the Messy Brilliance Show. I am so honored to be speaking with Suzie Daggett today. So Suzie is the author of several books, but her new book is called The Pink Door, Mom's Journey to the Other Side. And I can't wait to dive in with her because this book talks about so many incredible themes if you are dealing with a parent or a friend that's in hospice or in the dying process. It's very practical, but it's also very heartfelt, and it's very raw, vulnerable, and truthful. And it helped me to validate what I've been through and to really take me to the next level in understanding death and dying in this country. So I really am looking forward to talking to her, and I can't wait to get going. Well, welcome, Suzie. I'm so excited to be speaking with you today about this beautiful and vulnerable book that you wrote and about your life's journey, because at Women for One, that's what we ask women to do. We ask them to share their experiences and the wisdom they've gained from them. So I'm really excited to have you here.
Thank you, Kelly. And boy, did I gain a lot from helping my mom pass on her terms. Not on my terms. I had different terms because I thought at the beginning when she was going through this, that I thought, oh God, I just don't have time for this. God, come on, Mom, you've just gone through this so many times. No, this is not the right time. And of course, that's the wrong attitude. And I straightened myself out after a while. But you do, if anybody's going through this process of helping an elder or a friend or a spouse die, you go through this pissy process, and I did, and we would now call it the messy process, because I didn't have the tools to understand what I was going through. I had no tools.
Right, and a lot of us don't. And, you're actually a woman that's done a lot in her life. And I want to start there with you for our community, to give us somewhat of a summary of where you were coming from right before you wrote this book and what stage you were at in your life, because there's a lot of us that are there. I'm 50 this year, and, I dealt with my husband's mom passing several years ago, and we're all hitting that stage now. So take us back to where you were, but right before you wrote the book, and some aspects of your journey to that space.
Well, I have to start way back because Mom introduced me to the mystical, metaphysical world when I was still in high school, and I'm 70. So that was a few years ago. And there were few books, few books. And we did a little study together. And as I left and went to school and went away for work and marriage and all that stuff, and she kept going and I kept going, slightly different paths. I went highly into the intuitive edge of things. She went into astrology, and she was unbelievably clear just looking at somebody's chart. And it just kind of whacked my dad out. But, we brought him around at some point. And it never whacked me out. And I got involved in the healing arts in the area I live in, and created and published a directory of healing arts practitioners. And so I've always been on that edge of understanding something that is different than what is being played out in the world. And so as Mom was going through this process, I had another, I have my website, Dear Source, actually it's called Suzie Daggett. And I have Facebook, and I just write. I've written a couple books, and Mom loved them. She was like my cheerleader. She was so wonderful about that. But I did not know that I had this book in me. I had no clue. As she started going through her process, the only way I could get through mine was to write. So after caring for her, I'd come home, I would just fall into bed dead, and then I'd have to get up and write. And that was what part of the book is. It's part journal, part narrative, and part very good, helpful hints for people who are like me out in the desert with not a tree and no water in sight and not knowing what to do.
Thank you for that, because I've done a lot of different modalities. I've done a lot of self-help I mean, ever since I was 16, I've been a seeker in some way or another. And, I felt very helpless when one of my dearest friends was dying 10 years ago. I mean, truly helpless and not understanding all that went into the death and dying process. And I'd always been fascinated by death and dying, to be honest, because there's just this place of like, well, there's birth and there's death, right? And we all experience it. They say, what is it? Birth, death, and taxes, right? But we really all are going to be experiencing all of this. And I didn't understand as a more of a young person why it was so awful. And I remember when my father was dying, he died suddenly when I was 16, and I just was in shock. And I didn't know how to respond. I didn't even know what to do with my feelings because I didn't know what the appropriate thing was to do. I was in shock. I was afraid. I had to handle everything because my parents were divorced. And so I think about a 16-year-old versus like a 40-year-old when I dealt with my friend. And, a very well-equipped, conscious person that's trying, I felt completely lost, Suzie. So when you talk about this desert, I think we're all there. And I'm wondering why we are. Why do you think we are, as in America, like that?
We don't have rituals like some countries have. We don't understand the whole process. We're very afraid of it. Mom was never one bit afraid of dying. She had tried to go many times and she never made it. And this time was real. And that's why we didn't think really it was going to happen. But then it did. We were all kind of laughing about it in a mom sort of way. But people are afraid of talking about it because it gets emotional. It gets emotional and they don't know what to do with their emotions. And if they haven't covered some of the 4 bases that I discovered as I was writing the book or after I wrote it, which are love, honor, permission, forgiveness, they're going to grieve in a very different way than if you do those things. If you love the person, if you say to the person who's dying, even if you didn't like their personality, we know that there's a lot of issues between mothers and fathers and daughters and kids and, all that stuff, all that messiness, all that Kelly messiness, you put aside for a minute. That's their personality. And you look in their eyes, you love their soul.
Right.
You say, I love you. You're not approving of the way they treated you. You're approving of them as a soul. And those 3 words are so vital.
They're so powerful. Yes, they are. They truly are. And I had to do that because I've got lots of issues with my mom. I had to do that in the healing school I was in. And I had to come up with a higher self-quality that I felt like my mom gave to me and honor her for that and thank her. And it was really huge for me because it really helped me actually focus on that for once instead of focusing on my victimhood and what had been, quote, done to me. And then also moving forward from that is that forgiveness piece. And as I was reading your book, and honestly, The Pink Door, if anybody is going through this, and sometimes it can drag out for years if your family has dementia or if there's a really bad terminal illness. The forgiveness piece is so huge, Suzie, and I want to talk about that because as I was reading this book, I was crying. And I wasn't crying just because of my friend Jules, but I was crying about all my relationships. And this forgiveness piece is so huge. Can you speak to it?
Well, the forgiveness was interesting, and I didn't really recognize how vital it was until towards the end, Mom was doing forgive me, forgive me, forgive me. And I thought, okay, this is a clue that she wants the priest to come and do absolution one more time. She'd already had it several times, but one more time, I guess it
can't hurt.
She wasn't a practicing Catholic. She just, that was her way. And don't be surprised if your family, somebody goes back to their way, no matter what it is, honor it, let it happen. And what I think happened, and I'm no expert at this at all, she was not asking me to forgive her or her to forgive me. She was asking for her to forgive herself for something she may or may not have done in her life that she didn't feel was up to par. And she needed that space and that love of forgiveness to make the next move on. And it happened for her. I mean, she was unconscious, but the priest came, blessed her. And, they say that the last thing that goes is their hearing. I believe it's energetics.
Mm-hmm.
Energetically, she knew that she was capable at that point of walking into the other side without what she might consider in some terms a blemish on her soul. I don't think she had one, but that's me. I just didn't think she did, but she did, and she needed to deal with it.
Yeah, it's so true. It is about the self-forgiveness, truly. When we're blaming others and we're in that space a lot of times, it's that we're beating ourselves up. I love that happened for her. So
Yeah.
let's go back to you being a reluctant caregiver, because I know my husband was very similar to that around his mother's death, and it was really challenging for him. He didn't quite understand all that came with caregiving, and a day can feel like a year towards the end. For me, it does. So I'm curious, what was your journey and how did you learn to embrace that?
Well, Mom had been our neighbor for a long time since Dad died, and so we knew her very intimately, and we were very involved in her life. And then when she started going downhill, I thought, really, is this going to happen now? I mean, I'm really not sure it can. And honest to God, I don't know what to do. And I'm just getting pissy because I am not a natural caregiver. I am not one bit a natural caregiver. I'm as far from natural caregiver as I can get. And Mom knew that. And yet I had to do this. I was a chosen one. In each family, there is someone, this is my idea, that is going to be chosen to take over and take care of the mama or the daddy. And it might be several people, but one is going to rise up. And that was my job. And that was fine. I didn't mind being the chosen one, but it was just this huge weight on me. And it just felt like I was shrinking. And I don't like to shrink. I like to stand tall. And so finally, when we turn, there's always little tipping points that come, and then there's a big tipping point. So there was a tipping point where I realized she was really going to go. We really did need to care for her. And then it was up and down, back and forth, messy all over the place. And every time she bounced, I had to learn to bounce with her. My gosh, what a learning this was, because I'm not used to that. I'm used to just going off on my own and doing my own thing. But I needed to be there present for her, not for me.
I love the bouncing with her. So you had to basically get on her train and follow her train and yes. Not go into push or pull or, and yeah. I completely agree. And wow, for people that like to get, first of all, like me, like to get things done, let's move it along, suck it up, right? So that's how I learned to survive. It really is an amazing lesson I found. And I don't know if you have found, to slow down, hold that presence and really be there, like in a way that's unconditional. Would you say?
And be compassionate. See, I think that's something I needed to learn, because that's like, I'm like you, just suck it up, get over it, for heaven's sakes, be done with it and let's go forward. But that's not the world.
Nope.
The world is different than that. And you do need to sit and slow. Slow is not a word in my consciousness. It is now, but it wasn't then. And really be available, not be thinking about what you could or should do, because you're not could or shoulding then. You are being there for that person so that you can love them up. And boy, oh boy, did we love her up. Every caregiver that came, and we only had one professional, and this was only a 5-week deal, so we were very lucky in that. Every caregiver she knew and she approved of. The Virgo in her, like, oh, you're a nice girl. Yes, you can come.
Right.
And we let her do that So that is part of the honoring, is that is part of one of the elements that I came up with. They're not me. Everybody comes up with these. The honoring those who are dying, let them do it their way. That means
Yes.
get
Give them
your
control.
personality out
Right.
of the way.
Right. And give them some control.
Yeah. Yeah. Give them control. And like your husband, maybe he came around, maybe he didn't. I didn't know what to do, and I'm not medically inclined. So anything medical we gave over to my husband, which we called him Dr. Daggett. Something needs to happen. I could change the catheter finally. But oh my God, that was a trial of silliness. But I learned so much, and I'm quite overwhelmed with what she taught me.
Mm. Mm. What else did she teach you? Because that's really juicy right there. I can feel it.
The permission to leave this universe, or this what we know. Now, this I all of the family. She had me call everybody because she wasn't making phone calls at that time. So we have a small family, and I would dial the phone, then I'd leave the room and let her have her moment with the grandkids or with my sister, and my brother and I were there on site. And everybody was of the same opinion, that they all called her Mamacita or Mom. Mm-hmm. When you're ready, you go, be happy. Mm-hmm. And then they said, we'll call you back. And she said, oh, honey, don't call. I might not be here. And so there was like no concern in our family of holding her. And many families want to hold Mama.
Yes, they do. And let's get into that permission, because giving the permission, I found, was huge for, I did that for my mother-in-law, where I would go and I would sit with her, and I could tell that her personality was keeping her, but her soul had traveled through that pink door, which I want to, and come back, or like almost there. And it's like that oscillating, like, oh, I missed my opportunity. So I'd love to talk about that too. But that permission place is so huge for people, I think.
Yes, it is. And if one person in a family holds out, the one who is dying is going to hold on for them, because they don't want to disappoint, right?
Right.
They don't want to disappoint. And that's many times, I think, why people die when everybody's out of the room.
Yes.
There's nobody there. Mm-hmm. They've all left and they've gone down the hall somewhere. But again, it's energetics. If somebody is holding on to Mama because their fear, the one who's holding on, their fear is that if she dies, what do they do?
Right.
And that's what it comes to. It's not about you, darlings. It's not about you. It's about whoever is dying. Let them be in peace. Let them give up the struggle, the messiness of life. Mm-hmm. There's more on the other side.
It's so interesting you say that, because yes, we can all consciously even try to make that effort to do that. But, with my friend Jules, when I was with her, she left her body when I was with her. And mm-hmm. I was sitting on next to the bed, and she had the death rattle come, which a lot of people talk about. The death rattle was there. Mm-hmm. And I felt her energetically leaving her body, like I could feel it. And I was so connected to her that I had to hold on to the bed. I felt like I was going with her. So my whole point on this was, I thought I was giving her full permission, but subconsciously, I think I was holding on to her as well. I think we all do to loved ones.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to go, oh no, she needs to go and I need to stay. And I held on to the bed and she went. It was beautiful.
Well, what a teaching for you, Kelly, that you could understand the elements of that. Many people would not even understand the elements of that.
Right. Well, I thought about it later. At that point, I was just overcome with emotion. Like, what is happening? I feel like I'm lifting out of my body. But you wrote something, and I mean, I highlighted so many things in your book, but on page 114, you wrote it so beautifully, and I don't know if I can read it because I'll probably cry, but you said, I have heard over and over what a privilege it is to be with someone when they pass. This made no sense to me until I was with my mom in her special final moment. All these days and years of her saying, enough is enough, were over. She was finally free to let her spirit fly. It was an honor to witness this dynamic change from breath to no breath, from being in this world one moment to transitioning to another with silence. It was so beautiful. I just had tears running down my face reading that. Because if anybody has experienced that, they know the sacredness of it.
It is an incredibly sacred moment that I had. We read about it. We do read about it, but you've got to experience it and be present to how it is happening. And it is just, it's as miraculous as your baby's being born in a very different way.
Yeah.
It's miraculous. It's lovely. They don't look beautiful. She would kind of like be unhappy that she didn't have her lipstick and jewels on, but it wasn't time, Mom.
She sounds like a firecracker.
She was. And at our family dinners, we could talk about anything. There was no subject. And this was wonderful for our kids and their friends and our friends. They could ask her anything, and she would just pipe up with her opinion. And it was beautiful because she wasn't afraid of life. So for all the listeners, please don't be afraid of life. Embrace it. It's messy. It's weird. It's odd. It's crazy. But it's yours. And she took hers and held it tightly.
Yeah. And she made the choice, right? So let's talk about the pink door. The actual term, the pink door. And I know what it is because I've read the book, but can you tell our community a little bit about the pink door for your mother and why you called the book that?
A teaser. A couple weeks before she died, she said, God, I'm so mad at myself. And I said, why? And she said, I didn't go through the door. And I said, what door? And she said, the pink door. And I said, oh, why? And she said, I don't know. That's why I'm mad at myself. And so then I asked her more about it. And then I started looking around and I realized that she had pink stones and a pink rosary that she slept with under her pillow all over. And that was her entry. That's not everybody's entry, obviously. That's her entry. And that was her soft, quiet spot that she was going to go to. And so we started an altar and we decorated with everything pink, And she said, and pink roses. And she said, no cards. She didn't want any cards. I don't know why, but she didn't want any cards. And so that was part of the honoring when we knew that she had a pink door image in her. We assisted with her altar, not to push her, but to assist and to allow and to honor. And it's just hers. And I didn't realize until I looked around, and I'm holding one of her stones right now, what she had. They were just everywhere.
That's
and we
awesome.
didn't even see them.
It's so great. Pink door. Wonder what I've always loved purple. Maybe my door will be purple. My purple gateway. It's amazing.
I think yours will be swaying, it'll be one of these doors. It's not quite a door. It's more of a nice little curtain that's beautiful.
Well, and I love that she wasn't afraid to die because I feel the same way. I feel still so connected to the people that have passed in my life in so many ways and I've learned, years ago, I was terrified of death and I had a dog pass last year and we did it out under my fountain. I have this beautiful trellis that my husband and I got married under, and we brought it back from the wedding site, and we have a water fountain. And I sat on the fountain and we put our dog down, who was, one of my best friends, and I held him, and there were 30 people around. It was this beautiful honoring of this soul passing. And to go from terror and fear from when I was 16 to now honoring this passing, it is beautiful. It really is empowering in life to honor death and not be afraid of it.
Yeah, the fear is what holds people here. You can be 98, 99, 105 years old, and you're not going to die. And I'm going, wow, really? And the reason is because you don't have an image for yourself, something that's comforting to you of what's on the other side or what it's going to be.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And mom did. She did have that. And I don't know what mine is particularly, but I'm not afraid. And I don't want to see like my husband go or my kids go or anything. But I know that there is a beautiful energy that supports all of us here and very much so on the other side.
Right. And to be perfectly honest, I've been involved with organizations where my dear friend has an organization. It's called Illumination, with children with life terminal illnesses. They document and take beautiful photos of them. And, I'm not saying that death isn't really hard, and it's really tragic sometimes with these young souls that come in that have to experience pain, and their families have to let them go. I think what we're both saying is it can be a choice in moving into a different perception and understanding of where you're going instead of having fear around it. Correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
It is your choice as a personality, as a human. You have 2 or 3 elements to yourself, and one is the soul, and the soul is never afraid. The soul is ready to bring you and help you with your life lessons.
Well, yes. And the other thing I loved about this book for all my community is that you have these in the back of the chapters, these very practical insights.
Yeah.
And I actually, what was so great? It just represented another aspect of who you are. You could tell you're a very grounded, powerful person that's very practical when they need to be as well. And it was almost like, we're feeling all of these emotions, reading the story. And yet, if you're going through this is what you need to know. And I love that. Can you share why you decided to do those insights? And obviously you like that word because you use it a lot in your business.
I do. Well, because I needed the emotional edge, and I needed the practical edge. So when I was writing it, when I finished writing it, and I thought, okay, how can this be even better? And I thought, well, I'll pop insights in, and then to do it, because it's part journal, part insight, and part narrative, so it's split up in different ways. And then there's practical stuff in there, and I always like to help people understand things more in depth instead of just this little superficial thing. Like I just opened it to one page and it said, the need for 24/7 care can occur at any time. It is another obstacle on the road that once crossed is rarely reversed. Taking control of your elder's situation can be difficult and sad, but must be done. This is where managing the situation with courage, strength, and love is essential. That's a typical insight to give people a little more inner power to go and do what they need to do as they're going through this process.
Absolutely. And even the one at the end where you're like, have paperwork in order when a loved one dies at home. I mean, no, I remember all of those things. You're not thinking of those things a lot. It's really challenging to go into that other analytical mind when you're dealing with such emotion and grief, and it's great that you're like, got to have that in order.
Yeah, I put a list of things that you really need to have as you're going through this process. If you do not have control of your elders or your spouses or whatever's checkbook and credit cards and all that, it's going to be really messy when they die. Because mom had been going through this and she was almost 91 when she died. I was signed on everything. So there was no issue for us. The will and the trust were all done. We had the DNR on the refrigerator, signed by her doctor. The ambulance people wanted to see it, and I just shoved it in their face. I was so mad.
I know. I saw that in the book.
Think about reviving her. Get out.
I know.
But they were that's their job, is to try. And I would not let them in the house.
Right. I love that.
I didn't know these things. I operate from a very intuitive point of view. And I just did this whole thing through knowing very little doing a little bit through hospice. We couldn't do hospice because she didn't have an illness. You can only do hospice if they have a 6-month illness. And she was dying because she was done.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a way to die, apparently. You can't die of old age anymore. You have to put something else on the death certificate.
Oh my goodness.
But these are things I didn't know. People don't know.
Right.
You know?
We need to educate ourselves, and that's what I love about this book. So where can our community find this book, and what other ways can they interact with you, Suzie? Because I know you do other things as well.
Yeah, well, I can do some one-on-one just chatting, which I would call intuitive counseling, but I'm not a counselor. I'm not a counselor at all. And they can get the book on Amazon or Barnes and Noble. My website is Suzie, Suzie Daggett.com. And they can look. I do a lot of writing, and I have a couple of Facebook pages. They can follow me. And
wonderful. Well, we'll have all the information up on our site.
I know you will.
Yes.
You're not messy today.
I'm not. I'm organized. So thank you so much for your raw and vulnerable truth and truth telling in this book, because I think I'm sure it's helped many people already, and it'll help people for many, many years. I really appreciate you speaking with me about it.
Hey, Kelly, you are a leader.
Oh,
just keep
thank you. Thank you. And so are you. And it's so great to connect with you. So thank you, Suzie. And everyone, check out the book, The Pink Door. I'll have all the information up. Bye.
Bye-bye.